Texas has more ghost towns than any other state in America, over 500 of them, and counting. That's not a typo. 500 towns that once had homes, schools, churches, and dreams, now sitting empty, swallowed by dust and silence. One town had over 5,000 people and was on track to become the biggest port in Texas, gone in one night. Another town lost 65 people in a single flood, and its survivors built the city you know today. These aren't old legends. They're real places, real families, real loss. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at an empty Texas field the same way again. Let's dive into the 12 towns that vanished, and the terrifying reasons why. Number 12. Belle Plaine. Our countdown kicks off in Callahan County with a town that once held real power. Chua. Belle Plaine. Founded in 1876, Belle Plaine wasn't just another farming settlement. It was the original county seat, the beating heart of local government, business, and education in the region. At its peak, the town was home to Belle Plaine College, a proud institution that drew students and gave the community a sense of permanence. People believed this town was built to last. Streets were laid out, homes were built, and families put down roots expecting Belle Plaine to grow into something bigger. But status can be fragile. When railroads began cutting through Texas, they didn't always follow the towns that already existed. They created new ones and pulled the life out of the old ones. Belle Plaine lost its grip as the county seat, and once that happened, the town lost its purpose. Businesses left, families followed. The college that once symbolized progress eventually closed its doors for good. Today, if you drive out to the site of Belle Plaine, there isn't much waiting for you. Just the ruins of that old college and a quiet cemetery, standing alone in the open Texas landscape. No stores, no streets full of people, no signs of the ambition that once existed here. Just wind, grass, and headstones marking where a community used to be. Belle Plaine is proof that in Texas, survival wasn't guaranteed by hard work alone. Sometimes it came down to a single decision made far away about where a railroad line would go. And when that decision didn't favor you, your entire town could disappear from the map. Number 11. Glen Rio. Sitting right on the border between Texas and New Mexico, Glen Rio tells a story about how quickly progress can turn its back on a place. This wasn't a sleepy little settlement. Glen Rio thrived because of two things: the railroad, and later, the legendary Route 66. Cars and trains rolling through meant motels, gas stations, cafes, and steady business for everyone who called this town home. For a while, Glen Rio wasn't just surviving. It was booming, riding the wave of America's road trip culture and the freedom that came with it. But here's the cruel twist. The same kind of progress that built Glen Rio is exactly what destroyed it. When Interstate 40 was built, engineers didn't route it through Glen Rio. They built around it. And just like that, the highway that once fed this town with travelers and money simply stopped bringing anyone in. No cars meant no customers. No customers meant no businesses. And no businesses meant no reason for families to stay. Today, Glen Rio sits frozen in time, straddling a state line that no longer means much to anyone. Abandoned motels and empty gas stations line what used to be a busy stretch of road. Sun-bleached signs still hanging on for a town nobody drives to anymore. Glen Rio is a haunting reminder that being connected to progress doesn't guarantee protection from it. One new stretch of asphalt, drawn a few miles away on a map, was all it took to turn a booming roadside town into a ghost of what it used to be. Proof that in Texas, even highways can decide who lives and who gets left behind. Number 10. Toyah. In the dry stretches of Reeves County, Toyah once stood as proof of what a single railroad line could build in the middle of nowhere. This town didn't grow because of fertile farmland or a hidden mineral rush. It grew because the Texas and Pacific Railroad decided to run its tracks straight through it. And for a while, that was more than enough. Toyah became a stopping point, a supply hub, a place where trains, cargo, and people passed through daily, bringing money and momentum with them. But building a town's entire identity around one railroad line is a dangerous bet. Toyah's economy wasn't diversified. It didn't have a booming industry of its own, a strong agricultural base, or another reason for people to stay if the train stopped mattering. So when rail traffic patterns shifted and the Texas and Pacific Railroad's importance to the region declined, Toyah didn't have a backup plan. There was nothing else holding the town together. Slowly, the same thing that gave Toyah life started draining out of it. Businesses that depended on rail traffic closed. Families who had no other economic anchor packed up and left for towns with more stable futures. What was once a functioning stop full of activity turned quiet, then empty. Toyah stands today as a warning about single-industry towns, places built entirely around one lifeline, with nothing else to fall back on. When that lifeline weakens even slightly, the whole town can unravel. In Texas, depending on just one train line to keep your town alive was sometimes all it took to guarantee its eventual disappearance. Number 9. Sherwood. In Erie County, Sherwood wasn't just another small town trying to survive. It was the county seat, the official center of power and government for the entire area. That title meant something. It meant a courthouse, established businesses, family homes, and a level of importance that most small Texas towns never reached. Sherwood had roots, it had structure. It had every reason to believe it would remain the heart of Erie County for generations. Then the railroad came through, but not through Sherwood. Instead, the tracks were laid a few miles away and a brand new town sprang up right alongside them. That town was Mertzen. And almost overnight, Mertzen became the place with opportunity, while Sherwood became the place people started leaving. Families didn't want to be stranded away from the railroad that was now driving business, transportation, and growth in the region. So piece by piece, they packed up and relocated toward the tracks. By 1911, the damage was done. Sherwood had gone from a powerful county center to a shell of a community, stripped of the population and purpose it once had. What's left behind is almost poetic. The old courthouse still stands today, alone on the landscape, a solid stone reminder of authority in a town that no longer has anyone left to govern. Sherwood's story hits different because it wasn't a natural disaster or a market crash that ended it. It was a railroad survey decision made by people who likely never set foot in the town itself. In Texas, sometimes all it took to erase a county seat was a map, a pencil, and a route drawn a few miles in the wrong direction. Number 8. Medicine Mound. Out in Hardeman County, near a cluster of sacred Dolomite peaks, Medicine Mound was once a real, functioning community. Not just a scattering of houses, but a proper trade hub. At its height, the town supported around 500 residents and, remarkably, 22 separate businesses. Think about that for a second. 22 businesses in one small Texas town. That meant general stores, services, and steady foot traffic. It meant a place where people didn't just survive. They built lives, raised families, and expected the town to keep growing right alongside them. The name itself came from the mounds nearby, considered sacred ground by Native American tribes long before settlers arrived. For a while, Medicine Mound thrived on the same formula that built countless small Texas towns: agriculture, trade, and the simple advantage of being a convenient stop for people moving through the region. But like so many towns built on farming and small trade, it had no major industry to anchor it permanently. No railroad hub, no mining operation, nothing forcing outside investment to keep flowing in. As economic patterns shifted and larger towns absorbed the trade and population that once supported small hubs like this one, Medicine Mound slowly emptied out. Businesses closed, families moved toward bigger opportunities elsewhere. Today, most of what remains is the preserved Hicks Cobb General Store, standing almost like a monument to what used to be a bustling street full of customers. Medicine Mound is a quiet reminder that even 22 businesses and 500 residents weren't enough to guarantee permanence. In Texas, without a powerful enough reason for people to stay, even a thriving small-town economy could fade into silence within a generation. Number 7. Shafter. Deep in Presidio County, out in the far reaches of West Texas, Shafter tells a story that Texans have heard again and again. A boomtown built entirely on what the earth could give up. This time, it wasn't gold or oil that pulled people in. It was silver. When rich silver deposits were discovered in the surrounding hills, word spread fast, and Shafter transformed from empty desert into a working mining town almost overnight. Miners, families, and business owners flooded in, chasing the same dream that built dozens of towns across the American frontier: get in early, work hard, and strike it rich. For years, that dream held up. Mining operations ran steadily, silver flowed out of the ground, and Shafter had everything a boomtown needed: steady wages, a growing population, and a reason for everyone to stay. But silver mining, like so many resource-based industries, comes with an expiration date built right into it. The deposits that built Shafter weren't endless. As the richest veins were exhausted and mining became less profitable, the entire foundation the town was built on started to crumble. When the mines finally shut down for good, there was nothing left to hold Shafter together. There was no backup industry, no second reason for people to stay in such a remote part of Texas. Miners packed up, families followed. Businesses that depended on mining wages closed their doors one after another. Shafter now stands as another reminder of a familiar Texas pattern: towns built fast on a single resource, thriving hard while it lasted, then disappearing just as quickly the moment the ground ran dry. Number 6. Thurber. In the hill country stretching between Aerith and Palo Pinto counties, Thurber wasn't just a mining town. It was practically a small empire built on coal. This was a true company town, meaning one single business essentially owned and operated everything, from the mines themselves to the homes people lived in. And that business made Thurber the leading coal producer in the entire state of Texas by the early 1900s. That's not a small claim. Thurber was powering industries, fueling railroads, and putting Texas coal on the map in a massive way. What made Thurber even more remarkable was how far ahead of its time it was. This wasn't some rough, primitive mining camp. Thurber became one of the very first towns in Texas to offer full electric services to its residents. While other small towns were still relying on candles and oil lamps, people in Thurber were living with modern electricity. It had brick buildings, organized streets, and an identity as a genuinely progressive Texas town. But being tied entirely to one company and one resource comes with brutal risk. As coal demand shifted and the mining operations that built Thurber's entire economy began winding down, there was nothing else to catch the fall. Within roughly 15 years, and right as the Great Depression tightened its grip on the country, Thurber was completely abandoned. A town that once symbolized progress became empty almost as fast as it had risen. Today, Thurber's red brick buildings still stand, iconic and eerily preserved, making it one of the most photographed ghost towns in Texas, a monument to how fast even the most advanced towns could fall. Number 5. Terlingua. Tucked into the rugged desert near Big Bend National Park, Terlingua has one of the wildest boom stories in all of Texas. In the late 1800s, cinnabar, a red-hued ore used to extract mercury, or quicksilver, was discovered in the surrounding hills. At the time, mercury was in serious demand, used in everything from detonators and explosives to processing gold and silver. That demand turned Terlingua into a mining powerhouse almost overnight, pulling in more than 2,000 residents who came chasing steady work and a piece of the boom. The Chisos Mining Company, led by Howard E. Perry, quickly took control of the operation, and for decades, Terlingua ran like a well-oiled machine. Miners worked the quicksilver mines, families built lives around the industry, and the town became one of the most productive mercury sources in the entire country. In fact, during wartime demand, Terlingua and towns like it were responsible for producing a huge share of America's mercury supply. But mercury demand doesn't last forever. As the mines were exhausted and the need for quicksilver dropped sharply, the entire economy propping up Terlingua collapsed with it. By the 1940s, the mines shut down, and the town that once buzzed with over 2,000 people emptied out fast, left to the desert wind and crumbling adobe buildings. Here's the twist, though. Terlingua refused to completely disappear. Unlike so many towns on this list, it found a strange second life, becoming a haven for artists, outsiders, and adventurers drawn to its isolation. Today, it's known for its famous chili cook-off and quirky charm, proving that even a ghost town can find a way to keep breathing. Number 4. Old Bluffton. In Llano County, Old Bluffton has one of the strangest and most haunting stories on this entire list. Because this isn't a town that was destroyed by fire, drought, or an economic collapse. This is a town that was deliberately drowned. Old Bluffton was once a real, living community, home to around 50 families who built their lives along the Colorado River. They had homes, farms, relationships, and routines, just like any other small Texas town, with no idea that decades later, their entire town would vanish beneath dozens of feet of water. That fate arrived when the decision was made to build a dam and create Lake Buchanan. As part of a larger effort to control flooding and generate hydroelectric power for the region, the project meant flooding the low-lying areas along the river. And Old Bluffton happened to sit directly in that path. Families were forced to leave behind homes and land that had been theirs for generations. Watching as engineered progress physically buried their town underwater, layer by layer, until nearly 30 feet of lake sat above where streets and houses used to be. What makes Old Bluffton so eerie, though, is that it doesn't stay hidden forever. During periods of severe drought, when water levels in Lake Buchanan drop low enough, the ghostly remains of the old town resurface, foundations, roads, and remnants breaking through the surface like a message from the past. It's one of the only ghost towns in Texas you can literally watch reappear. Old Bluffton is proof that sometimes towns in Texas weren't lost to nature or economics at all. They were sacrificed, sunk on purpose, for the sake of progress somewhere else. Number 3. Barstow. In Ward County, Barstow's story is a slow, quiet kind of tragedy. The kind that doesn't happen in one dramatic night, but drags on for years until there's simply nothing left. In the late 1800s, Barstow looked like a town with a real future. It had a courthouse, schools, and a growing number of businesses. Farmers were drawn to the area, believing they'd found fertile ground to build stable lives on. For a while, that belief held up, and Barstow grew the way so many hopeful Texas towns did. Steadily, family by family. But farming in West Texas has always depended on one fragile thing: water. And in the early 1900s, that fragile thing disappeared. A major drought swept through the region, and it wasn't a short, dry spell. It was severe and prolonged enough to cripple the entire local economy. Wells ran low, crops failed, and the farmland that once promised prosperity turned hard and unworkable. Without water, there was no farming. And without farming, there was no reason for families to stay. What makes Barstow's decline so painful is how helpless everyone was against it. This wasn't a railroad bypass or a company shutting down a mine. This was nature simply refusing to cooperate. Residents didn't abandon Barstow because they gave up on it. They left because survival became impossible. Slowly, the schools emptied, the businesses closed, and the courthouse that once represented order and permanence became a symbol of a town running out of time. Today, Barstow exists as a shadow of what it used to be, proof that sometimes a town doesn't need a disaster to disappear. All it takes is the sky refusing to open up. Number 2. Benficillin. Now we're getting to one of the most powerful stories on this entire list. Because Benficillin didn't just disappear. It gave birth to the city that replaced it. Founded in 1873 in Tom Green County, Benficillin quickly became more than just another settlement. By 1875, it had beaten out its rival town to become the official county seat, complete with a courthouse, stores, a hotel, and roughly 600 residents who believed they were building something permanent. By 1882, the town had even completed a brand new 2-story stone courthouse, a clear symbol of confidence in Benficillin's future. That confidence was shattered in a single night. On August 23, 1882, heavy rain sent multiple creeks and rivers surging out of their banks. By mid-morning the next day, a wall of floodwater roared straight through town. On the flat ground near the river, almost nothing survived. Only the courthouse, the jail, and 2 houses remained standing. 65 people drowned. An entire community, built over nearly a decade, was wiped out in a matter of hours. With Benficillin destroyed, there was no reasonable choice left but to move on completely. County offices relocated north to a nearby town called San Angelo. In 1883, that town officially became the new county seat and was renamed San Angelo, the city that still stands strong today. Ben Ficklin's story hits differently because it's not just about loss. It's about legacy. A single catastrophic flood erased one town entirely, but in doing so, it accidentally created the foundation for a much bigger city. In Texas, sometimes destruction doesn't just end a story, it starts a new one. Number 1, Indianola. And here it is, the most devastating story on this entire list. Indianola wasn't a small farming settlement or a modest trading post. This was a major seaport, founded in 1846 on the shores of Matagorda Bay, and it grew fast. At its peak, Indianola was home to over 5,000 residents and was genuinely on track to become the largest port city in all of Texas. Ships arrived constantly. Goods and people flowed in from around the world, and the town had every reason to believe it was building something unstoppable. Then, in 1875, a devastating hurricane tore through the coast and heavily damaged the town. But Indianola's residents were stubborn. They didn't give up. They rebuilt, determined to prove the town could survive anything nature threw at it. For over a decade, that resilience seemed to pay off. The town clawed its way back toward normal life. Then, in 1886, a second massive hurricane struck, even more destructive than the first. And this time, as if the storm alone wasn't enough, a fire broke out afterward and consumed much of what remained. That combination was too much to survive. The people who had rebuilt once finally admitted defeat, and Indianola, once poised to be Texas's greatest port, was abandoned for good. Today, there is almost nothing left. No streets, no buildings, no signs that thousands of people once lived and worked along this stretch of coastline. The sea that made Indianola powerful is the same sea that erased it completely. Indianola stands as the ultimate warning in this entire list, proof that in Texas, even a town destined for greatness can vanish completely, swallowed whole by the very water that built it. And there you are, 12 Texas towns that once had families, businesses, courthouses, even electricity ahead of their time, now reduced to empty fields, sunken foundations, and lonely cemeteries. Some were erased in a single night by flood or hurricane. Others faded slowly, drained by drought, a railroad line drawn a few miles away, or a mine that finally ran dry. But every single one of them was real. Real people built real lives here, believing their town would last forever. And in the end, none of them got to decide when it was over. Here's the unsettling part. This isn't just history. Small towns across Texas are still fading today, quietly, the same way these 12 once did. So if this hit different, do me a favor. Hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me which ghost town you want me to explore next, and share this with someone who loves a good mystery. Texas isn't done disappearing yet.